stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight. O'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rockets red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave? Soldier. Oh. Command, detail, order. Who? Ready. Go. Right. Peace. Command, detail, uncover. Two. Order. Forward. Move.
Let us say our Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. The invocation today will be given by a true friend of the department, a man who has spent decades working to make Baltimore a better and more peaceful place, Chaplain Mallman. Chaplain.
Thank you. Each opportunity have to say thank you. As a resident of Baltimore City and a parent of kids in city schools, thank you. Every day you show up. Thank you. God, I thank you for all that you have done, all that you have provided to make it possible for us to celebrate these faithful servants. Lord, you've truly been good to us. You truly have provided for us. We ask your blessing on this time. In particular, God, I ask for your peace, your perfect peace that brings each person to good health, that makes all parties whole. Would you bring your peace inside us, inside each officer's home, in their relationships? Would you bring them to peace? Thank you, God. Would you bless this time of celebrating their good works? In your name, amen.
Command, detail, ready, seats. Ladies and gentlemen, please be seated.
Good evening, everyone. My name's Jeremy Silbert. I'm one of the public information officers for the police department. We'll bring up the MC in just a minute, but my office, media relations, we have an easy job. We go on TV, we talk about the great work that many of you in this room are being recognized for tonight. What's not so easy is when we started planning this event. Police commissioner and his staff, we wanted to do something different. We wanted to do something on a higher level to not only recognize each of you, but also your families. We wanted to bring everyone together. We wanted to pick a special location. We didn't want to use the auditorium or the atrium. So after some hard work with the commissioner's team, we were able to pick this venue. We also wanted to have an MC, you know, a real celebrity status, someone that just screamed Baltimore. We made some phone calls. We were having trouble finding someone, so we ended up picking Jamie.
That's good.
But he agreed to come in. And for those of you who are not from Baltimore, first of all, if you're from Baltimore, you know Jamie Costello from WMAR Channel 2. He literally is Baltimore, all things Baltimore. He grew up in Baltimore, in Arbutus. That's what the website said. All right. He grew up in South Baltimore. How about that? Southwest Baltimore. Jamie started working at WMAR in 1987. I was 7 years old at the time. Probably some of you in the room aren't even born then. But over the years, Jamie has really made a name for himself. A true journalist. In our office, we don't have favorites. I say that because all of our media partners are here tonight, but always fair, always a huge supporter of the police department. So honored that you're here tonight, Jamie. So with no further ado, our good friend, Jamie Costello.
Thank you, Jeremy. Well, thank you. I love this city. I remember Jack Young and I down at Gordon's Seafood was a little boy. We went in there. Remember Orleans Street? It had the fish you eat today slept last night in the Chesapeake Bay. Yeah, you were 12 months old. Before we start this, in all my years growing up in Baltimore, I cannot remember losing two giants in our community, Elijah Cummings and Tommy D'Alessandro. And if we could just pause for a second, a moment of silence in their honor for what they have done and what they're still going to do even after death. Thank you. I was just at Tommy D'Alessandro's viewing up here in St. Ignatius. His dream was to have it at St. Leo's. But St. Leo's was too damn small because there were so many people that wanted to come and say goodbye. Here's a man, Jack, who led us 50 years ago, and we're still remembering what he did. He opened it up to minorities. He said not only get them jobs, but push them up the ladder. Make sure that they had the great jobs so that all of us could be represented. And Jack Young is here today, and I want to thank Jack for being emotional on TV last week in the death of Elijah Cummings. You spoke for all of us, Jack, and you cried for all of us. Ladies and gentlemen, the 51st mayor of this great city, here he is, Jack Young.
Thank you, Jamie. Thank you so much. First, I'd like to acknowledge our U.S. Attorney, Robert Hur, and Commissioner Michael Harrison, and the Baltimore Police Department officers, families, and friends. It's an honor to join the Police Department family today to recognize sworn officers and civilian employees who represent the best qualities of the Baltimore Police Department. Medals Day is a celebration of your brave and meritorious service to the city of Baltimore. I want to thank Commissioner Harrison for his steadfast leadership and say again that you have my full support, Mr. Commissioner, as you continue to work to transform this department. I want to thank you all for your dedication and commitment to this department, this city, and its residents. And I encourage you to continue the good work that has gotten you here today, and to also take time to mentor those behind you to make sure they are learning the right way to do this job. As police officers, you are ambassadors for our city and our communities. And you're critical to that being critical to that is the service you provide as residents. So make sure you talk to them and treat them like you would treat your own relatives. Get out the cars and engage them. Commissioner and I was at the training academy this morning. The commissioner went around and shook everybody's hand and asked them where they're from. And they all responded where they were from, and we shook their hands. And the commissioner said, just like we took the time to shake your hand and ask about you, we want you to do that same thing to the citizens of Baltimore. Because I can truthfully stand here and tell you that 99, and you probably hear me say this all the time, 99.9% of the citizens of Baltimore appreciate and respect and support our officers. Is that 1% that's out there that's creating havoc in the city of Baltimore, and those who support them, who are anti-police, is a small minority. So regardless of what anybody said that City Hall do not support you, I'm here to tell you, City Hall do support you. We support all of the good, brave men and women in this department. What we don't support is those who are corrupt and those who try to give a bad name to this agency. And I know you don't want them here as well. But I'm here to tell you, we support you 100%. And thanks to the family and friends who have gathered on this great day to recognize the very best that we have in this city, and that's you, the men and women who wear the blue, and those who work in the Baltimore City Police Department. So again, thank you for having me. I won't be able to stay because I have another engagement that I have to attend, but I'm going to stay up until about 5:35 so I can see a little something, okay? So again, thank you. Thank you, Jamie.
We need a leader to get us out of this, right? I think we found one. He is your commissioner, Michael Harrison. Commissioner.
Good evening, and thank you, Mayor. Thank you for your leadership. It's an honor to serve under your leadership, and thank you, Mr. Costello. And we did want to have someone with celebrity status.
Yeah, you lost it again.
We did want someone with celebrity status. And so we're honored to have you as our MC. You can laugh at that. But look, there are three things that are sacred in any police organization, or should be sacred in any police organization. The first is the thing that I know you all remember, the day you graduated from the police academy. We all remember it. Many of us still have the pictures. I was telling somebody a little while ago that I don't even count, Sonny, this is our Deputy Chief of Staff of Public Safety, thank you for being here. I don't count my time on the job in years. I count it in pounds. I don't say 20 years ago, I say 100 pounds ago. Some of you can relate to that. So it's the first thing is your academy graduation is sacred. The next thing for those of us that have been promoted will be promotions. When you get promoted in an organization, it's a sacred time. It's a time where we are showing the evolution of a police department, how we're maturing, how we're growing, how we're developing, how we're getting bigger, we're getting better, smarter, making more money. And then the third sacred time is when we reward the hard work that you do. That often goes unthanked, when nobody ever says thank you. When members of the community, sometimes who are not there to say thank you, maybe they'll say it when you're there, but when you get home and realize the magnitude and the gravity of what you did earlier that day or that night, and no one is there to say thank you, the most sacred thing other than graduation and promotions would be the award ceremony. It's been sacred to me all of my career, and I think it should be sacred to you. And that's why we wanted to get out of the roll call room, out of the Comstat room, and bring you to a nice venue and give you something to eat. And we pay for that food, so please eat it. So, and give you a nice venue, but to have your families here. It is one thing to say thank you to you. It is one thing to say thank you in front of your family, because they often don't get to hear us say thank you. They hear you come home and tell the stories, but they have no idea how the department and the city feels about the work you do. Well, we're here to tell your family that we appreciate the work you do, the sacrifices you make, the way we run toward danger rather than away from it, the way we put our lives on the line most of the time for people we don't know. It's easy to do it for family and friends, but we go out and do it for people we don't know, and sometimes people we'll never see again. And for that, we want to be able to say thank you. So this is not about a long speech like in a graduation. This is about thank you for the work you do, for the sacrifices you make, for all that you do, for the heroism, for the times that our news media, print or TV, won't show the positive stories. These are the untold stories that we know, that we tell at our dinner tables and at Christmas parties and at birthday parties and at graduations and recitals and family gatherings, but no one ever sees it. And this is an opportunity for us, the city government. Thank you, Mr. Hurd, for being here, to all of my deputy commissioners and all the leadership, chaplain, for us to tell you thank you in a very public, in a very first-class way. So once again, thank you. God bless you, and God bless your families. This is your night.
That is great. All right, let me ask all the dignitaries in the room to please rise. Anybody running for mayor, please rise. All right, Jack, you got a free slate. There you go. It is my honor now to present Bravery, our heroes, the men and women that make Baltimore, Baltimore. And I would like to bring up the sworn members and citizens who have demonstrated extraordinary courage Family and friends are invited forward to take pictures as well, as we will start now with the Silver and Bronze Award finalists. Let's bring up Sergeant Luis Ruiz, Sergeant, Officer Karn, and Detective Waskowitz. Please come forward and stand up in front. Sergeant Ruiz, Officer Karn, and Detective Waskowitz. Now for the rest of us, I want you to stare at these three and listen to their story. On February the 7th of 2017, Sergeant Kincaid and Detective Waskowitz were patrolling the area of Holland Street in Monroe when their attention was drawn to a vehicle that was driving erratically. So Sergeant Kincaid and Detective Waskowitz attempted to conduct a traffic stop, and then they got a little suspicious as they observed 5 individuals inside the vehicle. Now, the rear passenger's door began to jiggle and open and close while the vehicle remained in motion. After a short period of time, a subject suddenly jumped from the vehicle and began to run from the scene on foot. Sergeant Kincaid, Detective Waskowitz, pursued the subject, immediately recognizing him as a repeat violent offender who was a person of interest in another recent crime. The individual continued to run while pulling out a handgun that was tucked inside his pants. Officer Creed and Officer Karn were in the area nearby. They were conducting an investigation when they observed Sergeant Kincaid attempting to stop the armed suspect. They all joined in the pursuit, also witnessing the suspect brandishing that darn handgun. All officers began to work cooperatively together to bring the incident to a successful resolution. Sergeant Ruiz, Detective Henry arrived on the scene, witnessed the suspect raising his gun at Sergeant Kincaid. Sergeant Kincaid discharged his weapon and was able to incapacitate the suspect, and then the officers disarmed the suspect, began to render medical aid to him. Investigation revealed that the suspect was released from central booking only 3 hours before the incident in which was being held a prior handgun violation. At the time of the encounter, it was learned that he was contracted to murder a rival drug dealer. Because of his bravery and his ability to execute his duty in the face of extreme danger, Sergeant Kincaid is hereby awarded the Silver Star. Because of their collective efforts, being a hero, attention to duty during dynamic and stressful situations, Officer Creed and Detective Henry are hereby awarded the commendation. And Sergeant Ruiz and Officer Karn and Detective Waskowitz are hereby awarded the Bronze Star. Officers, detectives, have you ever received a standing ovation? Here's one for you. Everybody up. Great job. Great job. Standing work, my friend. My goodness. Our Citizens Award, Mr. Major Daniels. Major, come on up. It was January 22nd of this year. Major Daniels witnessed an attempted assault and robbery taking place in the 700 block of East Pratt. The victim was being attacked, and the assailant was trying to take her purse. So what did Mr. Daniels do? 72 years old, Mr. Daniels ran over, attempted to break up the attack. He was able to draw the attention of the suspect away from the victim and on to him, thus stopping the assault and robbery. Mr. Daniels was then attacked by the suspect until the police arrived and placed the suspect into custody. Because of this man running to the aid of a woman on the street, Mr. Daniels made it possible to apprehend the suspect, protect the victim, and stop a violent crime right in its tracks. With great sacrifice, put his whole life up. Mr. Major Daniels is hereby presented with the Citizens Award. Major Daniels. 72 years old, man. That is great. Way to go. Law Plucker, come on up. Ms. Plucker. All right, well, I'll tell you what she did. August 26th of 2018, she was driving in the 2500 block of West Franklin. She saw a Baltimore City police car stopped right in the middle of the road, so she stopped, wanted to know what was going on. Did the officer have some sort of a medical assistance? Did he need it? She called 911. Because of her quick-thinking actions to assist the officer in medical distress, she is winning the Citizens Award. All right. Next up, Mr. Jose Ramos and Mr. Anthony Stakakis. Are they here? Well, what did they do? January 3rd, 2019. They were walking around the downtown area when they were alerted that a larceny was going down. So both gentlemen, without hesitation, started chasing after the suspect who had stolen a young lady's purse. So the gentlemen were able to catch the suspect, alert a security guard in the area, and because they just, stealing a purse, right? That's a violent crime, but damaging the reputation of Baltimore, that's even worse. We award them with the Citizens Award. Next up, Mr. Wilbur Torres. Wilbur. There he is. What did Wilbur do? Wilbur's doing contracting work right outside the National Aquarium in the Inner Harbor when he hears screams going on the waterfront. So Mr. Torres located two victims in the water, one man and a child who was strapped in a stroller. So without hesitation, you know what this man did? He went to work. He lowered himself to the water's edge, pulled the stroller and the child still strapped inside, pulled him out of the water. He then pulled the adult victim to safety. Without this man and the quick thinking and jumping into hearing a scream, he saved 2 lives. Because of his selfless heroism, Mr. Wilbur Torres is hereby presented with a Citizens Award. Wilbur. Man. Pulled a baby and a stroller out of the Inner Harbor. Criminalist 3, Blair Laughlin. Blair, come on up. Blair began his career with the Baltimore Police Department as a forensic scientist for the mobile unit back in June of 1975, and then after 20 years with the mobile unit, he was promoted to criminalist in the drug analysis unit in January 1995. Is Blair here? Well, as a forensic scientist in the DAU, Mr. Laughlin has been dependent upon as a leader for many, many years. And along with his knowledge of all the instruments, his understanding of chemistry was very good. And also, after the management restructuring, Mr. Laughlin was appointed to team lead for Team 1, and in his role, he has 9 direct reports. Team 1 is tasked with analyzing all circuit court cases regarding status updates and complete case results. And Mr. Laughlin's is very team-oriented here, management skills, and because of his career success, Blair Laughlin is hereby awarded a Distinguished Service Award. Blair. Detective Michael Voderick. Michael, are you here? Michael was assigned to the Baltimore Police Department Homicide Unit. He received his first case in October, and during that year closed 11 of his 16 cases. That's 69% clearance rate. And in addition to the listed accomplishments, the detective also was assigned to 23 questionable death investigations that really increased his caseload. Detective is also the epitome of a modern, flexible, professional death investigator, and because of his career successes, he is hereby awarded a Distinguished Service Award. Detective Michael Voderick. Officer Dwayne Weston. He wins the Bronze Star. Back in August 23rd of 2017, the Western District Operations Arrest Team, consisting of Officer Weston and 2 other officers, responded to assist a fellow officer in the arrest of a suspect who had observed several on-view hand-to-hand narcotics transactions. And they seized illegal narcotics and currency, and based on this incident and quick action, without the regard to their safety, Officer Weston and others were able to effectively arrest the suspect and get him off the streets. Congratulations on the Bronze Star to Officer Dwayne Weston. Officer Miguel Martinez. It was near midnight, and his partner, they were on patrol in the Inner Harbor when their attention was drawn to a commotion in the water right near the footbridge on East Pratt Street. They observed a passerby looking down in the water and 2 women seated on the edge, straining to hold on to another person in the water. The individual was attempting to save a second victim, also in the water. So what did Officer Martinez do? He lowered himself down. He grabbed the first victim's hand, attempting to pull him to the edge to get him out of the water. However, because the man had been in the water for a while, he had no strength. So despite all this, Officer Martinez's efforts, the victim's hand slid from his grasp, and he went under the water, and then under the pier, and then out of sight. Officer Martinez, along with the assistance from those around him, helped pull the second victim from the water, saving his life. And once the second victim was saved, Officer Martinez grabbed a life ring, jumped into the 37-degree water to try to retrieve the first victim. Unfortunately, the darkness of the area and distance under the pier traveled by the first victim made it impossible for Officer Martinez to save him. Officer Martinez knew immediately that his own life was now in jeopardy. And with the heavy weight of his uniform, the temperature, and that cold, icy water, he knew that he wouldn't make it. He called out to his fellow officers to help him out, and efforts were quickly coordinated to bring him out. Once out of the water, Officer Martinez made sure to give the exact location that the missing victim was last seen, and as a result, the fire department divers were able to locate the drowning victim's body. Because of his bravery, self-sacrifice, and quick thinking in an effort to save the first victim, Officer Miguel Martinez is hereby awarded the Bronze Star. Next up, Officer Chris Miller and Officer Jeremy Foster. July 15th, 2019. Officer Chris Miller of the Northern responded to a call regarding a shooting at the Maine Alive Addiction Treatment Center. Upon his arrival, Officer Miller received information from citizens that the shooting was inside the clinic, and the shooter was still there. Officer Miller notified other units and continued to gain additional information about the suspect while waiting for backup. Officer Jeremy Foster arrived with his sergeant, made his way to the front officer, and that they were informed of an active shooter that was going inside the clinic. The sergeant took control of the scene, directed officers to form a perimeter around the location. Officer Miller and Foster followed their sergeant through the front door. They located the shooter within 3 minutes of getting into the building. The shooter was in possession of a revolver and in a defensive position. The sergeant made contact with the shooter, gave multiple requests for the shooter to drop his gun, but the shooter didn't. Officer Miller followed his sergeant down the hallway. As Officer Foster took up a defensive cover position, Officer Miller and his sergeant continued to walk towards the shooter in an attempt to disarm him. But the shooter refused. He didn't drop the pistol. He fired a round right at them, which missed. The shooter then sought cover in a rear office, and the sergeant began to open fire to suppress the shooter as they closed in on his location. It was at that time that the shooter was able to fire a round, which struck the sergeant in the left part of his stomach. The sergeant returned fire, as did Officer Miller, as the shooter rushed right at them. Shortly after, the shooter became incapacitated and fell right to the floor. The sergeant advised Officer Miller that he had been shot. And Officer Miller immediately dragged the sergeant from the line of fire, approximately 40 feet into the hallway to the front door of the clinic, where he summoned his medic and began to treat the sergeant's injuries. Officer Foster, who maintained coverage of the shooter, was able to close in and secure the shooter's weapon and the scene in order for the medics to begin treatment on him. They are heroes. They went into that clinic that day. All they wanted to do was make it home to their families. I remember going down to shock trauma to make sure that this officer made it, and he made it all right. He made it tonight to be an award winner. Ladies and gentlemen, your officers of the Baltimore City Police Department, an incredible, incredible moment in our history. We thank you both. Come on up here and get your awards. The Legion of Merit goes to Lieutenant Robert Velty and Detective Greg Price and Detective Monica Albino. Come on up. Over the course of 1 year, Baltimore Police Department's Homicide Section and the FBI Safe Streets Task Force built a case on a criminal enterprise, 500L Gang, that operated throughout Baltimore on 500 North Rose Street. The department began their investigation after consulting with Detective Ray Hunter of the Homicide Department, and after identifying the violent criminal organization that operated in Baltimore as being involved in a murder, the Baltimore Police Department, with the assistance of the FBI Safe Streets, initiated a long-term wiretap investigation and discovered evidence that the gang operation was responsible for several crimes, including murder and drug trafficking. So detectives were able to successfully take down the organization with the arrest of 11 members of this violent gang and a significant amount of heroin, cocaine, marijuana, ecstasy, firearms, money. Additionally, they discovered a handgun used in a recent murder, and as a result, 2 additional individuals were indicted and arrested. The case really tells about the great effort, the focus of a mission of combating the violent organizations that plague our city with violence. And as a result of their collective efforts, members of the Anti-Crime Section receive the Legion of Merit tonight. And now for the Medal of Honor, Citation of Valor as well, Sergeant Billy Shiflett. Billy. Again, this was the Man Alive Clinic situation that we had. And Sergeant Shiflett, went through that front door, located that shooter within 3 minutes of getting inside. The shooter, Sergeant Shiflett made contact with, gave multiple requests for him to drop it down, and Sergeant Shiflett and the other officer continued to walk towards the shooter in an attempt to disarm him, but the shooter refused. It was at that time that the shooter was able to fire a round and struck Sergeant Shiflett. Sergeant Shiflett returned fire, and the shooter rushed towards them. And shortly after, they got the shooter. Sergeant Shiflett advised his fellow officer that he had been shot, and your brave police officer dragged you to safety. He was rushed to shock trauma, and we prayed all night, the next day, the next day, and the next day. And our prayers have been answered, Billy. You made it. Thank you for being a Baltimore Police Department officer. Thank you for protecting us, and tonight you receive the Medal of Honor. Thank you, sir. We'll give him the podium too. Here you go, Billy. Take this home. Well, if that does, all the stories that we just heard, if that doesn't make you want to love our city and love our people, we always hear the negative stuff going on. I know that. I do it every single night. But to be up here, to hear these stories, to see Billy where he is, to see all of you officers out there doing what you're doing, for the mayor to lead us during this tough time, for the commissioner to take it all and to make sure that we're all protected, this is something. So I want you to take the glow of this night, take it out on the streets, tell everybody what they missed, and tell them what we're doing. We're trying to make this city better, and damn it, we're going to make it better. Thank you on behalf of everybody. Let's keep doing it, everybody. Thank you.
1 second. This is not on the program, but sometimes you just have to know when the moment arrives and what to do in that moment. So though this is not on the program, I'm going to offer Sergeant Shiflett an opportunity just to say a few words. All right?
I'd just like to publicly thank Chris Miller and Jeremy Foster for doing what you did.
And once again, this has been an honor and a privilege to be able to honor you and to say thank you, and to say thank you in front of your families, the people who support you, who are our extended families. But our family is constantly growing, and when people come to help us, when we ask something of them and they say yes and they come to help, we have to honor them too. So I'd like to say thank you to Mr. Jamie Costello for being a wonderful MC. And for doing a wonderful job in accepting our invitation to be an MC. And so congratulations to all of you. Thank you for the work you do, for your sacrifice, and thank you to our family members for being here to witness this and for the support you give these men and women every single day. I can't wait until our next meeting. Thank you all.